Hello, Spookies, and welcome to Rick or Treat Horrorcast, hosted by yours Ghoulie, Ricky J. Duarte. I'm finally back after taking a bit of a break, and I couldn't be more excited about today's episode. My guests today are masters of their crafts, both of the stage and screen. Tracie Bennett is a star of Broadway and the West End, a double Olivier Award winner for She Loves Me and Hairspray, and a Tony and four-time Olivier Award nominee. Now, she played the role of Sharon Gaskell on the iconic British TV series Coronation Street and provided the voice narration for the audio versions of Bridget Jones's Diary, as well as The Edge of Reason. Tracie is currently starring in Here We Are, Stephen Sondheim's final musical, performing at The Shed at Hudson Yards here in New York City. Adam Mackie is a graphic designer, 3D animator, writer, and film director whose first short film, Few of Many, was released in 2021. His latest film, a horror short called End of Story, stars Tracie Bennett and is currently in post-production. Please welcome to the podcast, Tracie Bennett and Adam Mackie.
Hello, darling Ricky.
Hello.
I am so grateful to both of you for taking the time to be on my show. I am just such a fan of both of your work, and I can't thank you enough.
Well, thanks. We thought you would do it on Halloween times, but I guess you were booked up with other goodies and spookies.
It's true. I had a bit of a list going, but I'm so happy to have you on now. I met Tracie. You were on Broadway in End of the Rainbow when we very first met. Mm-hmm. I used to work at a piano bar in the West Village that I will remain nameless because I don't like too many tourists showing up there anymore.
I probably saw you then.
It's Tracie, you know, we've kind of run into each other through the years every once in a while, but we finally really connected just a little earlier in this year. And I'm so grateful that we did. And so grateful
fun, right?
Yeah, it was such a great time. And, you know, I've seen you I saw End of the Rainbow. I saw you in Hangman on Broadway. And of course, I recently saw Here We Are. And you are always just a pure delight, a fireball of talent. And, and now having seen this short film, End of Story, you get to flex a whole set of acting muscles that I had never seen out of you. So I'm so happy to have you.
Oh, that's Adam for you. He got that out of me. We had a really good gig up there. It was very spooky. I mean, I know you want to talk about it later, and I'll leave Adam to most of that. But just to say quickly, it was a very spooky location. Noises in the night. You know, we were doing a lot of night shooting, so we just had to keep our energy up, and the crew were delightful. It was a spooky house, and you know, the family who lived there actually were there with us all the time and helping us along our way and doing coffees and little bits of other things, and they were just very supportive, and we got through it, and it was a lovely town to walk through. We had a few meals out of it, didn't we, Adam?
Yeah, it was really fun. It was a beautiful town. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Gorgeous home too. Where did you shoot?
We filmed it in Warwick. It's like a 2 hours drive from the city. Mm-hmm. The producer suggested because we found the house that we needed and we wanted, and it was in Warwick, so we had to drive all the way there. It was easy for us to go there instead of bringing all the crew here, because the producer lives somewhere there.
Yeah, we all shared this house with kind of different schedules, so we were very respectful of each other. But I'd worked with Sebastian, the lead guy in it, before, so that was easy. I knew Adam from before, so that was easy. They kind of had meetings downstairs, but they let us sleep good because, you know, night shooting, your body clock changes again. And so I guess we were kind of tired but excited at the same time, you know. and you're always under pressure when you want to give the director what he wants, and Adam's very collaborative, but he knew exactly brilliantly his movie vision in his head. Like, he knew what shots he wanted. So
yeah. You made it so easy anyway, so on me
well, we
especially.
made it
Yeah,
pre-production values.
yeah.
So we spent quite a bit of time beforehand, which, we had the luxury to do. Thank God I flew out earlier, then I could talk and discuss things and do the costumes and the look, everything. So yeah, so you can talk more about that with Adam if you want.
Sure. The film is gorgeous to look at. I mean, aside from the incredible performances. And Tracie, you must have met Sebastian, the other star of the film, when you were in Hangman together, correct?
Exactly, I did. And he actually went on for Alfie Allen. I think he got like an ear infection. But just we were all being careful because it was last year when we'd finished it before with the COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody was still testing, but not
Right.
like 5 times a day like before.
Yeah.
So we were just all careful about illnesses, and as you would be, and sanitizing and stuff. So he went off for a little bit, and Sebastian did a great job, I have to say.
That's
So
great. When I saw Alfie was in, and he was terrific, of course. That was just a fucking great play. Truly, truly my favorite of the season. I saw everything that year, the first time I've ever accomplished that. But all right, Adam, let's talk about your film. What was the inspiration behind this? What was the genesis of End of Story?
It's a combination of ideas that I had in my mind, I started writing maybe like a year and a half ago, this story, and I kind of I remember a friend of mine, he was talking about his ex-girlfriend that she had multiple personalities, and he was like, they already broke up, but then he was talking about her, like, one day she's like this, one day like she's like that, and I didn't know I was living with a person. I don't know, like the next day I'm gonna wake up to like someone else next to me on the bed. Like, it was really creepy. It's the other part of this, how I wrote the story is, I wrote a story when I was 20 years old, and it was very like a dramatic story. And since then, I felt as a writer that all these characters, they're like kind of talking to me, telling me to, like, not in a crazy way, but telling me like, come on, finish like the story in a way. It's been in the computer there somewhere for like years and years, and every time I go back to it and I write more, and now it's a finished script now. But the idea of, I'm going to combine the two of this multiple personality thing with the character that shows up, and I don't want to give away much of the, because it's a short film.
it's
I feel
hard.
like if we speak, it's hard, because if you speak about something, it's like the whole film. It's like the
Right.
whole film. So anyway, I combined the two ideas together, and I kind of connected with my screenwriter that helped me writing the first short film, and he said, yeah, I think we have something there. And then we wrote together the script. So it was a combination of two, actually, one true story, and I'm not talking specifics how Tracie played these characters, but in a way, just the idea of it was there, and then I put them together.
And I was like, have you got any more? Because I love to play 20.
You do such a terrific job. The film is such a great, unique idea. And I just came off of the New York City Horror Film Festival this last weekend. I actually watched 41 short films and nine features in 3 days. I write for Rue Morgue magazine, so I'm covering it for that. And I came out so inspired. I'm writing my own screenplay. It's my first, it's a horror film. Actually, it's a horror musical. Tracie, I might have a role for you one day. But anyway, so watching your film, which is about a writer who's, struggling to get things going, was just so relatable to me. And the importance of building character and all of the self-doubt. So I very much enjoyed it, and I loved the spooky horror spin on it, and I love the little nods to Edgar Allan Poe as well. It's a very well done.
I want to give Tracie the credits for we had 3.5 days to film this. Like, literally,
Wow.
the people who live in the house, because they couldn't leave the house, they said, if you want to use the house, we have to stay there. So we'll give you the house for 3 days. And I used the half day to film like the outdoor, the B-roll stuff outside. But Tracie had to do this, let's say, I'm not giving like all these characters in 3 days.
Wow.
And some of them were, I think two of them were in the same night. And I'm like, Tracie, are you gonna be able to do this? He's like, yeah, it's fine. And it was amazing. I was like, I directed her at the beginning, telling her what to do, like if you maybe this, maybe that. But then you know what? I did not. I was just watching, like mesmerized by how she was like
That's
just.
because we were doing the pre-production, and that homework is invaluable.
Yeah, we did a lot of pre-production. Right? And that one made it easy on us, like 100%.
Yeah, and then I had to do my homework, obviously, and then I had to suggest things to him if they were all right. And once I got his initial core of the characters, I kind of expanded it in his terms. And then you go over or you go under and you say, is that good? You want that there? So you have to be quite specific on what you're in trouble with and get help from him, or what he specifically wanted. So it was a good match and a good merge, if you like, of the two of us. I mean, I wasn't privy to like Sebastian's thing with Adam, except when we got on set, there was a lot of separate shots because, of course, we were playing different shots with each other, and then I had to like bond with him in another way with a different one. It's hard to explain because we'll give the plot away, but yeah, it was a mixture of both of us, and with experience, you know that you have to work on something, then it's deep in yourself as well. I loved it. I loved the process of it all, and we did it in 3 days. Yeah, so that was good. We got it all in time. There was a bit of a rush towards the end because there always is, you know.
Right.
But you just pull your socks up and you listen really hard, and everybody goes quiet, and you can concentrate, and you're on with it, and you roll with it. And then it's like, okay, cut print, and then another one, okay, cut print, you know, and you just keep going like that, and you have to have the stamina for that. So I was grateful.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun watching Tracie. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
He took the piss out of me a lot of the time.
Let me ask you this, and then this will lead into talking a little bit about Here We Are as well. I'm a big believer that the horror genre is so effective in storytelling because it can use things like surrealism or even absurd situations to tell a relatable story in a way that might not work in another genre, right? So without giving away anything of end of story, there is a little bit of a surreal aspect to it. What was it specifically about lending yourself to kind of a spooky vibe and a little bit of a horror feel to your story that kind of drew you to the genre?
I mean, it's definitely, if you want to make sense of the story, I mean, I guess it doesn't make, but that's the point of it. That's the point of it. It is at the end. I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but it's at the end when you watch it. I'm like, so again, I don't want to give away. Like, it's just the thing about the short film. Like, but at the end, I was like, who is writing the story? Like, you that leaves you with this like big question, because again,
Like,
going back to Tracie, she's
inside you, or just the writing itself. You know what I'm saying? Some writers say that, oh, I just held the pen and it wrote itself. And you know,
I would love to experience that personally. Let me just say that's never happened to me.
I don't know if that happens for Adam, but some of my writer friends say that they just characters take over and they can't stop, and it becomes not them in the end.
In this case, it was like it could have gone in so many different directions, the story, and I was like gathering all these ideas, and so it was like a lot of ideas coming into the story, but I had to pick and choose which one. So it's kind of it's definitely on a surrealistic, like, mind bend, thing, story. The story. Yeah. I don't know if this answers the question, but
yeah, it did. And it brings me into, so Here We Are, Sondheim's final musical before, we unfortunately lost him, is not a horror musical by any means, but it really goes to a place of surrealism, and it gets frightening, in its own way. Tracie, I'll ask you two questions about it. Looking at this script and score for the first time, What was that experience like? And then how do you think these surreal aspects, particularly of the second act, lend themselves to telling the story?
Yeah, I mean, it's sadly not a 2-minute conversation. It can go on forever, but it's had different reactions from people, first of all. So when you said to me after, oh my God, the horror of the second act, most people have not said that. Yes, it's European, based on 2 European films. So if you're not privy to the Brunels of the world, or, that surreal Monty Python-esque-ish thing, then a lot of people have seen it and gone, I have no clue what it's on about. But because it's Sondheim, I listen to the tunes and that, and I've said, well, you're not really listening, because it's not rocket science, to be fair. It's got like little subplots and all that. And it's got like, a love story and this, and a group of friends who all then, it turns into a play. It's always been a play, really. And the songs are the extension of the play, like Sondheim's brilliant at, and he loves actors for that. And so the second half becomes, it's set in the future for one. The phones are 25, you're on a 25, so it's not like 3,000 miles forward.
Yeah, I caught that.
Right, but it's
like just 10 minutes into the future.
Right. And yeah, except like 5 years or something, I don't know. But it's in this kind of dystopia thing. And people have said, oh, it's almost like COVID and you're all stuck in this room and you can't get out. And then it's philosophizing about actually what is life about? What is the meaning of anything? And these people slowly change and become kind of themselves, but every one of them has changed a bit. They've seen a different angle of themselves who shake them up pretty badly. Like there's a big businesswoman and she's cocksure and she turns into a crumbling wreck, and kind of they all find themselves in these strange positions that have changed them somehow. And I'm not saying like Follies. Everybody came to that party at Follies and they all left differently. Carlotta's the only one who I played that comes in and she's happy and she leaves happy. She's happy with her life. She does tell you that story in that one big song, I'm Still Here, about the whole backdrop of America and what she's been through and the rehab she's done and the marriages that she had to get annulled. She's been every step of the way, up and down and up and down and up. But ultimately, she's not this massive star that she wanted to be. She's a bubbly chorus girl who did well in Hollywood, and she's totally happy with herself. So I'm saying that for a reason, because it's not the same, but it's similar in terms of this group who come together for the lunches that they're going on, which they never find the food, and that's surreal itself, because all these characters are me and Dennis O'Hare that are kind of slowly taking the mickey out of the bourgeois and the rich. It's like they're almost cleverer than they are, and they're sadder sometimes, but they're just real but surreal in their own way. It's either we're taking the mickey or we're saying nothing and just observing or eye rolling or something. So when they get to this house at the end, they all go for, instead of restaurants, and there's a revolution going on. So the bombs are kicking off. So everybody was going, oh my God, Israel, and it's always been going on. Sondheim obviously knew, and everybody knows. And it goes into a lot of places that Sondheim has obviously been thinking about, and David Ives and he and Joe worked together on it. So back to your question on the first day, Joe had rang me up and he told me I'd got it, and B, told a little of these characters, but he said he was a collaborative person. So he had a viewpoint in his eye and in his mind, but he was like asking us, what do we think to bring ourselves to these characters? And, sometimes I hate in the programs when somebody writes, oh, I created this. But it's like, no, it's the writers that created it. That's absolutely true for me. Without writers, we are nothing. And everybody knows that. And I say it really strongly. Without writers, there's nothing, which is why I was upset at SAG and, you know, all that stuff that they're undermining them, and because everything stops without a writer. So anyway, they collaborated, first of all, for many a years, and then Sondheim was doing other things, and then Joe Mantello kind of, you know, he said he pulled them all in again, and they discussed, and Sondheim gave them permission to move it forward. And then, you know, we know he slowly passed, well, quickly overnight passed, and so we were left with the responsibility in our minds of, oh God, do you want us to create it all, or do you want to follow us? So that was talked about again, and then we started with the score, and then we worked seriously, intensely, more intensely than I've ever done anything.
Wow.
Almost like Adam's film, because that was intense because I was playing different people. And again, I'm playing different people here. So I'm not one of the leads, but me and Dennis are, well, half of it, if you like.
Yeah.
And so we had to work really hard at our characterizations, because there are, you know, there's a Polish one, there's an Irish one, there's an American one, there's a mother of one, you know, they're all weird. And so we were frightened, but at the same time, you know, I've never thought I'm anything, you know, I just carry on working, and I'm grateful, and I skip to work. But for the first time, it was like, sit yourself down, this is serious now, it's the last one, it's history making, whether it works for people or not. Joe Mantello wasn't wanting it to go anywhere else. He said, this is for Steve, this is to show the last piece of work, almost like a gallery of his last piece as a tribute to him. And if it goes anywhere else, he wasn't kind of interested, and we weren't interested because of that. It was just an ode to him and this last piece of work. Absolutely. So either people love it or they might hate it. I don't know. It's not my place. We just execute it. And so the seriousness for our work ethic too, we were booked because of that, our brains, you know, for each different part, the younger one and the this one and that, we were booked and picked, and we've been told, which I couldn't deal with at first, because I'm like, no, you tell me what to do, you know. But we really had to put our weight in.
Yeah.
And just for me, come to terms with the gravitas that somebody thinks I might have. So I sat down, and it was like, I'm not going to skate over this anymore. This is what I've worked for, to be a part of this ultra from the beginning, totally correct. And every day it changed. Every day we had to go back and rethink and rethink, and then rethink again, and then add on what we liked, and process of elimination. It was so difficult and like I said, intense, but genius and brilliant and scary, and like, what do you mean by that? I can't do it. What do you mean? You know, well, okay, we'll have to give you another option quick. It was all the things you think about, but you never come across.
Yeah.
And then to add the songs to that and be very particular with the diction or the accent, or that, like, I had to calm my accents down because they can be of an ilk where people go, what's she saying? What? So you have to do a version for America, if you don't mind me saying.
Isn't that what happened with Hangman? Didn't you all have to tone down your accents in that play?
Well, we kind of did.
Yeah.
But they were adamant that we shouldn't, because it's like, if we can't keep up, it's not our fault.
Right.
But we did clarify, and then went faster and faster and faster until it was too fast.
Right.
Because it is fast how we speak. And then we compromised, because we got it out of our systems, and they were like, what?
Right.
It was right, like, you know, 65 accent like that. And if you put it quick like that, it goes again. And the Americans were like, I can't understand what you're saying at all.
Right.
So we'd have to stage diction it a bit and go, what do you mean by that? But like, you know, keep the confidence that it's from a particular area. And if you were doing like Deep South, you'd come over and do proper Deep South, and it's up to us whether we can do it or not. So you have to have that stage etiquette, really, and the stage technique, you know. So it sounds like it is, but if you put it on where it's actually from, they'd be like, you're going a bit slow.
Sure. Well, you are a master of it. I saw Here We Are a couple of weeks ago with some friends, and just absolutely loved it. It's like you said, a historical moment. Actually, the producer Tom Curtihy has been on my podcast.
Oh, I love him.
He produced Grey House, and so I was invited to do a post-show discussion with the audience alongside him. Became a bonus episode. It's actually one of my most listened to episodes on the show, and that show was also directed by Joe Mantello. So it's
I saw it.
Small Broadway world, you know.
I know, right? And a friend of mine produced it also, and so she said to go see, and I was going to go anyway, and I just absolutely loved it. It was weird, wasn't it? And freaky, and weird. The kids. I was like, how did you direct those kids?
Scary, and yeah, it was a very effective horror play on Broadway, and it's what I love to see. It got me like kind of going in my niche for writing for horror on stage. Right. For Rue Morgan, so I'm really grateful. They really kind of gave me some cred there.
But, yeah, well, you know, I'm thinking Adam might want to write a Broadway play soon.
Adam should do it. Adam should absolutely do it.
Well, we're thinking to turn In the Story into a show, and plus I'm writing right now. I'm extending it to a feature film, so that's what we're doing. We're like jumping ahead. Of time, but that's what we're doing now. Yeah.
Well, why don't we where can my listeners look out? I know the film is not completely set and finished yet, but where can they keep an eye out for it? When do you think that they'll be able to see it?
So the only thing we have now is the Instagram page. End of Story short film.
You're still in production, aren't you?
I'm sorry?
You're still in post-production?
Yeah, so today I finalized it with the composer, and then the editor is working on finalizing, you know, the final touches. So it should be done within like a week or 10 days, and then I'm gonna, you know, submit it to festivals and you know, see how it goes. Yeah, I mean, the best thing, the End of Story short film.
Very good. Well, and we'll have that in the show notes as well. I can't wait to see the final product. This version that you sent me, even with the temp score, and it's gorgeous and very well done. And so I really can't wait to see the final product. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we gathered here to discuss a wildly famous and influential horror film. What do you say we get into it? Let's go Rick or treating.
Let's do it.
Today we are discussing 1976's The Omen. It's directed by Richard Donner, who would go on to direct Superman and Lethal Weapon and The Goonies. Written by David Seltzer. Now, he also wrote the screenplay for the 2006 remake that starred Julia Stiles and Liev Schreiber. The remake was not a big hit. People said it was too similar, like almost a word.
I never saw that one, actually.
You know, there was brilliant casting because the evil nanny, Mrs. Baylock, was Mia Farrow. And I thought it was so inspired because she had been Rosemary in Rosemary's Baby, right?
Right. Excellent. And I believe the young kid, Damien, he was in it.
He did.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he played like a news reporter, I think. He had a little cameo.
I mean, how was that?
And so the 2006 remake, I didn't dislike it. It just didn't really add anything to, to the story. Now I want to take a second and talk about the score. Because Jerry Goldsmith,
Oscar-winning score.
He won a fucking Oscar for this score.
Right?
He almost didn't go to the ceremony.
Amazing.
He had been nominated before and lost several times, and he was like, "I can't do this again." But the director convinced him to go, and he won. It's a big deal.
It was a big deal. I mean, that honestly, even now, I remember. Oh, it's awful. And my singing teacher from my college, when I was 16 to 20 or whatever it was, sang on the score.
No kidding. Well, it's scary as hell. It sounds like it's straight out of hell. So it won score, and then the song Ave Satini was nominated for Best Song, which is bizarre because a choral piece I don't think has ever probably been nominated for Best Song. And this is the only horror score that has ever won for Best Score, which is just
really,
yeah. Now, I would love to ask both of you. Let's start with Adam. What is your relationship to The Omen? When was the first time that you saw this film?
I saw the film out probably maybe like 15 years ago, but then I watched it again because I knew we were talking about it a couple of days ago. And I gotta tell you, it's probably the best horror film ever.
Wow.
Like I think it's because you know what? It's not a jump scare. Like like it's not like one of these new films like they make you jump every second and screaming and this. It's very subtle. And the music, we were just talking about it. It's what makes the film because
Yeah.
it's so creepy and it flows with the with the scenes, with the imagery. So yeah, I watched a couple days ago and I think it was as good as as ever. It's amazing. It's amazing. And I have to say, like, I think because it's so good, it's what happened is when you watch a film, any horror film, you always compare it to these old ones, and these old ones end up always winning because it's
Yeah.
such an amazing films that you watch it again and again and again. It's always like there's always something in it, something new, or it's always scary. It's always, although you watch it so many times, it's
Classic.
always scary. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a timelessness to it. It lasts.
Yeah.
Tracie, what about you? What is your relationship to this film?
Oh my
You were the one
God.
who suggested we talk about it.
Yeah, well, out of a list, I got Rosemary's Baby. I mean, absolutely brilliant film. I mean, I love that. The Exorcist, I've never caught on with it. I knew it was hype at the time, and I was so young, and everybody was fainting, and I'm like, oh, don't be ridiculous. And by the time I seen it, I'm like, it's ridiculous. It was that over, and I even knew about the special effects. That not because I do what I do, because I didn't. I was a teenager. But I just didn't get the falling about, and maybe that was propaganda for the film. So I missed all the hype and didn't bother about it. So yeah, it didn't scare. I mean, it's scary, but the Omen was the first one for me that I could relate to as a human being, because it was just the prophecies of the Bible, the revelations. And I'd seen a documentary when they put it in parallel terms of like 20th, 21st century, and that was a scary documentary about how the hailstones would fall from the heavens, and then they put like bombs from the war, and they made
Sure.
So I grew up with a lot of religious education, and you question it as a kid even. So what's this God, and who are the three people, and what's Mary got to do then? Well, yeah, but where did she get pregnant? Why was it? You question it. My mother, she was like, oh. So she gave us a good thing, and I was very curious at the time. And my sister actually like studied at school with it all. So anyway, aside from all that, the priest in my day would be Saturday afternoon in your Spencer Tracy helping poor kids, and it would be like, oh, a feel-good movie, or like bloody Bing Crosby or something dressed as a priest, and it would all be like, yeah. But these priests, I mean, The Exorcist and Rosemary's Baby did put the way forward for these kind of things in contemporary settings. But when the priest didn't even scare me really in The Exorcist, but they did. They were trying to warn him, And the opening credits with it, I was freaked out because it felt real, like it could happen in my little teenage mind at the time. I thought this could happen because it's the sea of politics, and it's like the babies were swapped, and what's with the nanny hanging herself, and who's Billy Whitelaw, and we knew Billy Whitelaw because she was a northerner like kind of thing, and we loved her, and she all did this Brechtian thing, but she played it like Nurse with a smile. Nurse Ratched was horrible, but apparently it was cast as an elusive Irish woman. It was a bit like that, she couldn't be bothered. But Billy was clever enough to smile, and everything's good. This calm sereneness, which is hell and the gates of it with the apostles.
Menacing,
that's right? So it's totally between the good and evil. And I was so into that at the time. It freaked me out, like with all the pictures, with all the markings, how they were going to die. And Dave, it was brilliant, Dave, that photographer. And there were lots of behind the scenes things that were going on, like Gregory Peck, his son committed suicide before he filmed it.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, you're like, oh my God, what are you thinking? And his agent said to him, oh, go and do it. It'll be good for you. But it's like, it really wasn't.
No, because he was fresh off of the suicide of his son. Some people
Right.
say that he made this choice to work his way through the grief, but I
Sure.
mean, what a bizarre script to work your
What
way
a
through
bizarre
grief with, you know?
I mean, he was brilliant, and I've always loved him anyway. He's like a great ambassador for actors.
Especially that last scene.
Oh,
Especially
Yeah.
the last scene. Like daddy, like he's like begging him. It's like, oh my God. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
knowing what he'd been through.
Daddy.
Yeah.
And he gets all
Please, daddy. Oh yes, please, daddy.
please don't, Daddy. And you're like, just do it.
This film
Oh,
is so
God.
interesting to me. The first time I saw it, I was a very small child, maybe too young to have seen it. I watched it with my mom. She was a big fan of it. I too grew up in a very religious home. And so the Book of Revelation was terrifying to me. And, you know, I had seen documentaries as well that compared. My church would always preach that now is the end of times, that now are the end days, and that, you know, this could happen at any given moment. And so this movie had me absolutely convinced that the Antichrist had already been born sometime in the 70s and was, you know, going to ascend to power any day now. The director specifically made a request of the screenwriter to remove any supernatural elements, no cloven-hoofed demons, no satanic cult rituals. He wanted it to lay in a world of realism so that these mysterious killings could have been accidents or they could have been the work of the devil.
That exactly.
And it's very effective.
What freaked me out, because like even in, you know, when that priest warns him to go to this place and get the knives kind of thing, not in so many words, but he ran through that park and you just going, oh, it's on you. They've got you. The trees are burning, the gates are burning, the lightning's coming in, and there it is. You know, and you're like, oh, and the cast were just so real. And Lee Remick, when she's trying to take her thingy off and the veil over it, looking like Mary.
Sure, absolutely. I noticed that last night. Yeah, I'd never picked up on that before.
Oh God, yeah, and suddenly Billy Whitelaw's like that, smiling, and you're going, "Oh, you evil bitch!" And sharing off his the horrible death, the nasty, the glass, and everything that, you know, he'd seen in his photographs. This guy who'd seen it, just so well done. And you know what about the music? It's when they don't play the music. It's a section when there's no music, and you're like, "Why is there no music?" And then you all go, I'm hearing the noises of the house. Now I'm really terrified. And then suddenly, you know, the music comes in or whatever it is. And there's the dog in the basement, you know.
Oh my God, the dog. So I love this era for horror. I love 70s horror. We are post kind of 1960s peace and love. There's this post-Vietnam cynicism and fear, and this is kind of, you know, Charles Manson, and like you said, Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist. There was this real interest in satanic practices, and it's showcased in cinema in this time. I always think of the movie Race with the Devil. Did you ever see Race with the Devil with Peter Fonda?
Yes,
I love that movie. But so that was such a big thing at this time. And the
Omen. Why though? Why was it suddenly a genre? I know you're saying that in the backdrop of after Vietnam and all that, and the flower power. What made it be that way? What was happening politically? I can't remember offhand.
It was pre-Reagan. I think this was also a time when people were very first starting to doubt religion, or at least question religion. Right, publicly. I believe it was People magazine had a famous cover, something like "Is God Dead?" something like that, and it really freaked people out and upset them. This was just a time when America didn't feel like they believed in anything. Right?
When was Manson lot and all that cult thing?
I don't remember the exact year. It was early 70s, though.
Right. So it was all going mad serial killers and cults as well. And that started a good and evil thing going on, because these people were just mad and like evil, you know, to send people out like hypnotized almost, brainwashed. You know, I mean, they're crazy people, and people were listening to them in droves.
Yeah. No, I do want to, you brought up kind of the coincidental spooky things that were happening there. People call this film cursed, and it's unconfirmed if this was a PR stunt or if these events really happened. But there are people who believed that the devil didn't want this film to be made. Gregory Peck's plane and David Seltzer's planes were struck by lightning on their way to shoot in England. There were car crashes. There were bombings from the IRA all around the shoot. A chartered plane that they rented hit a flock of birds and crashed on the runway, and it killed the wife
He
and two
turned it
children of the
down, Gregory.
pilot.
I said, oh, no, I
Right.
can't go on that one.
Yeah.
So I'll get the next one. And he would have been dead now. Can you imagine?
Yeah, it's all of these strange happenings. There was the special effects supervisor was also working on A Bridge Too Far, was in a car accident, and his girlfriend was beheaded. Now he had to design the beheading scene in this film. And allegedly, the crash happened at the 66.6 kilometer marker on the highway.
Stop it.
Oh, wow.
What about that other crash with one of the crew, and the passenger was killed?
Yeah.
And he looked up and it was Omen with the double M.
Yeah.
The town of Omen, but with double M. How weird is that?
It's not all confirmed, but the same thing happened with The Exorcist, saying that there were all these cursed events happening. And was it PR? I don't know.
But it was after, though. They didn't need it. They were already successful. So I don't believe that they were just propaganda. It had made 60 billion or something, The Omen, and The Exorcist had made a lot. There was no reason to give it a bunch up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are too many things. And I don't think Gregory Peck's a liar anyway.
Right. Yeah. I mean, these things don't happen on just any set. The role of Robert Thorne that Gregory Peck took was originally offered to Charlton Heston, Roy Scheider, and William Holden, and Dick Van Dyke, who later admitted that turning it down was a stupid mistake. But I can't picture anyone but Gregory Peck in this role.
I know, that's right. Once you see them, but didn't William Holden do a prequel or something? A sequel?
I think he's in 2. He's in 2. Damien the Omen 2. Yeah. Playing Richard Thorne.
Take over from being Damien and the adult of it.
Right. Yeah.
What film was that? Number 4 or something?
That was 3. The Final Conflict, and that was Sam Neill who played adult Damien.
I know, brilliant.
Yeah, I love Sam Neill. He's terrific. 3 is very good. 4 was made for TV, and you can skip it. Don't waste your time. Well, why don't we get into the plot of this film and discuss it? All right, so it starts. We get a little text scroll that says Rome, June 6th, 6 a.m. An American diplomat named Robert Thorne, played by Gregory Peck, arrives at a hospital in Rome, and he has been told that his newborn child is dead. Now, he doesn't know how to tell his wife. A priest called Father Spoleto suggests adoption, but Robert says, no, Mrs. Thorne always wanted her own baby. The priest suggests taking a newborn whose mother had died at the same time that Thorne's baby had died, and insists, your wife will never know. It would be a blessing for her, a blessing for the child. Robert reluctantly agrees to it and brings the baby to his wife, and she has no idea of this exchange or that her own baby had died. And it's a really upsetting beginning to a film, because we're starting with this dishonesty, and Robert makes this reluctant choice that will absolutely come back to haunt him.
It were.
We cut to a few years later. Damien is around 3 years old, I think, and Robert has now been appointed ambassador to Great Britain, and the family moves from Rome to just outside of London in this massive, gorgeous mansion.
I love that house. Did you?
Oh my God!
I booked him. I was like, oh, I want to live there.
Yeah, with a
house that was evil. The evil came.
It after this film, it became a retirement home, and now it has turned back into a private residence again.
Has it?
Yeah, I know. Maybe swoop in and pick that one up. I don't know.
Oh, I want to know about that. Yeah.
Now it's revealed that Robert has ambitions of becoming president of the United States, and the family is just very happy in their home. When Robert, say that again.
With the nanny.
All right, so speaking of the nanny, we get a photo montage to the tune of Happy Birthday to You, and it brings us to Damien's 5th birthday party in the backyard of their mansion. There's kids and photographers, clowns, and a carousel and cake everywhere. And Damien's nanny, Holly, has a bizarre little eye-to-eye interaction with a random Rottweiler that's hanging out nearby, and this hellhound will reappear. But after that, the nanny goes to the rooftop of this gorgeous home and calls for everyone's attention. And she has a noose around her neck, and she beckons Damien to look up at her. Look at me, Damien. I love you, Damien. It's all for you. before leaping off and hanging herself. She crashes into a window below. And
so what do you think, what do you think what was all for her? Because I tell you what about The Omen, there's hardly any padding to it. And that's why I like it. Films go on and on, you're like, you could cut that scene, cut. There's no padding.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, what's your story? I mean, in real life, she was Jack Palance's sister, wasn't she? And I used to love Jack Palance.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, in real life. But so I did it all for you. That's not explained at all, is it? So is it just to show the first inkling of, has he gotten to her? What is he been doing to her that makes her do that? Is it the devil coming to her saying kill you?
Yeah, I think it's just because they need to make a way for the new nanny to come. So they they kind of like killed her in a way, right? I mean, that's what I understood.
Yeah.
So they wanted that specific devilish nanny to help him, the one who came later.
Yeah, but they didn't.
So I think they will make
personality at all, did they? They didn't have any scenes with her before the 5th birthday, so she was obviously there from 0 to being 5. Or that's just one thing. And I'm like, I get that it's not explained, and I get it's for opening the way to Billy Whitelaw's character, but it was just a bit like she looked mad.
Yeah.
Until you knew it was probably Damien doing it. So in my mind, I'm like, well, what did Damien do to her?
I think it stems from, she locks eyes with that Rottweiler, and that's where her eyes change. There's a change in her expression. And
so the devil's talking to her through the Rottweiler.
I think so. Yeah.
That they call them the devil dog, and it's a shame because apparently on set that dog was the friendliest dog that's ever been known to man.
I read that. Just wanted to lick people and be pet. Yeah, wagging its tail.
So they get a bad rap now because of the Omen film.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Now Damien sees the Rottweiler after the hanging and smirks and waves at it, and the Rottweiler just walks away. Next day, Robert is avoiding journalists on his way into work. One of these journalists is a man named Keith Dennings, played by the one and only David Warner, who had been at the birthday party. A priest named Father Brennan visits Robert at work and tells him that he hasn't much time and that he must accept Christ as his savior, and says he killed once, he will kill again. He says he's going to take everything from you. He reveals that he was at the hospital the night his son was born. He witnessed the birth, and he screams, "I saw its mother. Its mother was a jack," before he gets escorted out of the building.
Right.
So referring to Damien as it, and inferring that its mother was perhaps not human.
That's right.
We don't hear the rest of that word.
Jackal.
Yes, for sure. Jennings notices him.
Like Rosemary's Baby, right?
Say that again?
It's like a Rosemary's Baby thing.
Well, yeah, because there's, she's assaulted or raped by the beast in that film, and impregnated. Now, Jennings, the journalist, takes a photograph of Father Brennan before he leaves. And then when he develops the picture, he notices a strange line shape going over Brennan's figure in the picture. And it has appeared on several photographs that he's taken of Father Brennan. Robert returns home, and he's met by Mrs. Baylock, she says she works for the nanny company. She's to be the new governess. And she insists that she's here to take away their troubles and anxieties. She insists she wants to be left alone with Damien at first to get to know each other. And while Catherine insists that Damien is shy at first, Mrs. Baylock says he won't be shy with her. Robert suggests that they allow it. And no, he is not shy with her.
Yeah. She's protecting him, right?
Very much so. When she enters the nursery, Damien's coloring in front of the fireplace. It's a great shot of a raging fire behind him. And she tells him, "Have no fear, little one. I am here to protect thee." And we know that she is evil as fuck.
And must be destroyed.
Yeah, exactly. Shortly after, Catherine and Robert are leaving for church. Mrs. Baylock, the nanny, insists that Damien would cause a fuss. Don't bring him to church. He's too young. He would never understand the goings-on of an Episcopal wedding. But Catherine, irritated, tells her to have her son dressed and brought to the car. As they pull into the church, Damien begins to appear scared, trembling, and he crawls into his mother's arms. He's horrified, looking at the angels and saints and the steeple of the church. And then when it's time to get out of the car, he has a fucking conniption fit and starts hitting his mother and pulling her hair and scratching at her eyes. to the point that they have to just drive away. This was the boy's audition process. The director said, come at me as hard as you can. And the kid did. And that's what got him the role.
But you know that scene you're talking about there? And there's another one with the baboons, isn't there?
Yeah.
At the church, the director kept shouting at him.
Yeah.
And the kid got upset. And I'm thinking in real life, why is he shouting at him like that and making the pic? Because that's a kid.
Yeah.
So if you have to direct a kid that way, what's he doing?
Right. No, it would never happen today. It was
ever. Even then it shouldn't have happened.
No, of course not.
Because I've always thought about, you know, even when I was going to be an actor or whatever, I've always thought and watched films going, oh, did that animal get hurt? Or just instinctively? Or
right.
How did that kid cry like that? Was somebody scaring it behind it, you know, she or he, behind the camera? And this one really was. He was scaring him. And the director of The Shining did the same to the woman in that.
Shelley Duvall. Yeah, she was severely abused on the set of that film.
Severely abused.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, that night, Robert and Catherine have a discussion that he kind of exclaims, well, you know, he's never been sick a day in his life. Don't you think that's odd? And Catherine insists, no, he's just a good boy. Like you know, we love our kid. Robert, before bed, approaches the nursery and he's met by a growling Rottweiler outside the door. Mrs. Baylock tells him that they found the dog outside. They could use a good watchdog. And Damien loves him. He'll be great for Robert's long trips away. She's putting a little bit of guilt on him for, you know, him going away for work. And I think he picks up on that. You know, he insists, get rid of the dog, call the RSPCA. You know, we're not having this dog in our house. Now, let's talk about this baboon scene, because this is ingrained in my mind from childhood. I remember being terrified of this scene. Catherine takes Damien to a zoo, and the animals react in fear to him. A herd of giraffes runs away from him, and they go into this drive-through primate exhibit. Have you ever done one of these drive-through animal? Oh my God. You don't know fear until an ostrich has reached its head into your car, pecking for little like food that you have. Oh my God. Why
were your windows open?
Because we were feeding them. They gave us food to feed the ostrich.
Oh, that's wrong.
So scary. So bad.
My dad would have flung that window open, closed, and said, get inside.
Oh, so scary. So scary. Now, while they're at the zoo, Robert is leaving for work, and he notices that Father Brennan is outside the gate of their house. Back at the primate exhibit, the baboons become aggressive at the sight of Damien, and he smiles about it until they start attacking the car, and then he starts screaming and jumps into his mother's arms, and Catherine is freaking the hell out and begins to scream, and she just drives off, and baboons fly off of her car, and probably an instance where animals might not have been taken care of as well as they could have.
Well, do you know what they did?
Tell me.
They drugged one of the lead male ones, and it couldn't move.
Oh my God.
Put it in the back of the car.
What?
They kept them not eating the night before.
Oh my God.
So by the time the next day filming came, and she's driving with the drugged baboon at the back with the kid
and few bananas inside the car.
Right. They put all the food on top of the car. And she literally, what was the actress thinking as well? I'd have been like, no.
I was just going to ask if you would do this.
Tricky. I wouldn't let a baboon be drugged just for a movie anyway.
No, of course not.
So they all came running on the car, innocently worried about the baboon, the king baboon in the back, and wanting to help, and then eating all the food at this. Can you imagine the craziness?
No. And
that's why she was really screaming. And I say, any director who does things like this on top of one another, you're like, that's not directing to me. That's abusing everything.
Now it would all be CGI.
It's just common sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Would never happen these days.
No, it's all CGI. You can't really work with monkeys or primates or anything anymore the way that you used to on set, to my understanding.
I mean, I'm just,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
open their mouths like that. I mean,
Right. They're, I
no,
mean, they're vicious. They're scary.
no, she was screaming, and I mean, God love her.
Yeah.
It
Now
was a
that
great scene though. It
it's
was a great scene.
very impactful. Again, I remember it so vividly from my childhood, being just terrified. What a scary instance. Almost like Cujo, right? You're trapped in a car and being attacked by these vicious
Right.
creatures.
And these are life lasting terrors in your mind, you know,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that could happen if you,
Formative.
or a form of that. And they've
Um,
rocked the car over since in these, you know, it's just, they're just terrifying places. And that's what I mean. It was like, oh my God, I just went to a zoo when I was young when I watched it, you know.
Yeah. Well, this movie has some really great set pieces throughout. I think it does a great job of having impactful moments, filled with, you know, it spaced between really great story development. That night, Catherine and Robert lay in bed discussing whether there's something wrong with their kid, and Catherine insists she wants to see a psychiatrist, that she has such fears, and if she told him what kind, he'd put her away. Robert agrees to help her find a doctor, and he tells her that he loves her. It's very clear that they do have a good relationship with one another, and I appreciate that about this film because it makes it all the more heartbreaking as the story goes on. Robert attends a rugby game where Jennings, that journalist, can be seen taking pictures. Robert is approached by Father Brennan, who insists that they meet in Bishop's Park. If he'll just give him 5 minutes, he'll never see him again. He says his wife is in danger and she'll die unless he comes. Now, as he walks away, Jennings takes one more picture of him, and when he develops it, he sees that strange straight line appearing across his figure diagonally, just like before. Robert does meet Father Brennan in the park, and Father Brennan he's incoherent. He's very, you know, kind of upset, and he mutters what is passed off as a Bible verse. Now, this was not, it's nowhere in the Bible. This was written by the screenwriter. It's a poem. I'll read it once. It's repeated several times, but I'll read it just now. When the Jews return to Zion and the comet rips the sky and the Holy Roman Empire rises, then you and I must die. From the eternal sea he rises, creating armies on either shore, turning man against his brother till man exists no more. People left this movie thinking that this was actually in the Bible. They also left thinking that Damien, the name, is in the Bible, and neither of them appear whatsoever.
Isn't it amalgamation though of lines from Revelations?
So Revelation does talk about the Holy Roman Empire, implying rising in politics. Later, I believe it's Revelation, there is a line, a verse about a beast rising from the sea. So yeah, it's kind of a combination of things, formed so that these characters can interpret it to progress the plot of the film. It's a clever device, I think, although nothing in the Bible rhymes. So I find that distracting personally. So after speaking of the book of Revelation, he tells him to go to the town of Megiddo in the old city of Jezreel to see an old man, Bugenhagen, who alone can describe how the child must die. He tells Robert that Catherine is pregnant and that the son of the devil will never allow the child to be born. He will kill the child, then his wife. Then when he's certain he will be the sole inheritor, he will kill Robert. And Robert tells him, I never want to fucking see you again. Leave my family alone.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take in. Suddenly, when Robert leaves, a strange and heavy wind begins to blow. Tracie, just like you mentioned before, there's lightning striking a tree branch. There's fire. Brennan starts running to a church for sanctuary, climbs a locked gate that is then struck by lightning. It's a really great scene, I think. It starts
They
to
all are, aren't they? They've all got like your genre things, like specific little acts amalgamated together, stuck together. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely.
Everyone's like a picture perfect, horrible build up to it. And that's why I think it's brilliantly directed, because it doesn't look like it's pieced together as he's done a storyboard, but it is.
Right.
When you look, like most films anyway. But go on.
He bangs on the doors to the church and there's no answer. And suddenly a metal rod from the top of the church is struck by lightning, falls down and impales him while he's standing up. It's such an impactful kill. It's so iconic and disturbing. You know, the camera lingers on this. He's just standing there impaled.
It's time to warn him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's killed by his own goodness.
It happens so fast. So fast. Now, Catherine reveals to Robert that she doesn't ever want to have any more children and that she wants an abortion. She's found out that she's pregnant and she does not want to keep the baby. The phone rings and Robert is told to look at the newspaper from an unknown caller. When he looks, he sees a photograph of Father Brennan's body impaled by the lightning rod. This takes me out of the picture because never in a million years would they put a picture of someone's impaled body on
I know, right?
the newspaper. But it works. Now, Catherine's psychologist explains to Robert that she's having fantasies that their child is an alien or that he's evil, and she also thinks that the child isn't hers. I think it's interesting from a storytelling perspective that she is not allowed to say these things herself. It is a man who is explaining it about her.
But yeah, straight away I thought,
this is the 70s, right?
Because when they said, oh, he's pulling the Gregory Peck in to talk, I'm like, that's a breach of, whatever it is.
Right.
Like, you can tell if you have therapy.
HIPAA violation right there.
But I'm wondering if, political people have, immunity to all that. I just didn't know, but I found it strange, even at the time, because I knew the doctors couldn't say anything, or lawyers or that.
Maybe because they're married, there may have been some sort of agreement. I don't know. But Robert refuses to agree to an abortion. He says it was foretold that this pregnancy would be terminated, and he's going to fight to see that it's not. And he leaves the doctors urgently. As he's driving home, we see cut together with shots of Damien driving around the house on a tricycle. And Mrs. Baylock looks on, and Catherine is doing some housework. She's standing on a chair watering some houseplants, some hanging houseplants. And there's a little balcony that looks over the first floor of the house. And she's kind of next to this balcony. We see it coming. Mrs. Baylock opens the door to the nursery. Damien is let out on the tricycle, and he bumps into Catherine, who's standing on the chair. She falls to the first floor. First she's hanging onto the ledge while Damien watches and does nothing. And then she falls to the first floor and bleeds from the mouth. This shot is done really interestingly to me. So the actress had heard that Ellen Burstyn was severely injured making The Exorcist during the scene where she gets thrown across the room. She didn't want to film this falling scene. So they created a vertical set of what the floor of the house looks like. And on a dolly, they just lowered or moved her back toward it. But it looks like you're looking down at her falling.
Brilliant.
Yeah, really brilliant.
These little special effects, that were innovative at the time.
Yes.
Which weren't spectacularly Jurassic Park later, but they were good for the time,
Yeah, I think it's absolutely brilliant. A very clever way to do it. It looks great. And it has a little bit of an ethereal look to it, an unnatural way of moving, which I think actually adds to the sequence.
Yeah. It's like, and then she just turns around, doesn't she? I mean, she would have been dead in real life.
She turns to the side. I was like, how did they film this? And I thought she's a little bit stiff, but now you explained it. Now it makes sense to me. Yeah. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Oh,
she was right not to do it because of the backstory, but I mean that they do fly her over the to the wall, don't they, in The Exorcist?
Yeah. She still has a spinal injury to this day from it. Ellen Burstyn does. Now Robert arrives at the hospital in a cloud of paparazzi, and he's told that Catherine is going to recover, but she has a concussion, a few broken ribs, and has some internal bleeding. Catherine wakes up and tells Robert, "Don't let him kill me." And he gets a phone call from Jennings, who asks if he can discuss the death of the priest. Now, Jennings shows Robert the picture that he took at Damien's birthday party of the nanny who hung herself, and the shadow of a noose can be seen. He also shows him pictures of Father Brennan before he died, and we see that straight line slash through him, and then it's kind of realized, oh my God, this is how he was impaled. These pictures are predicting people's deaths.
Vile. That's a vile thought, isn't it?
Extremely. Now, upon doing a autopsy of Father Brennan, they found a small mark on his right thigh, 3 6s, the number 666. It was a birthmark.
Horrible. Oh yeah, what was he doing on his thigh?
I have troubles with this, these birthmarks are kind of Western numerical figures of 666 when this was predicted back when our number system didn't exist, but I'm not going to ask too many questions.
Right.
They discovered that the priest had been studying astrology and that 5 years ago, the Star of Bethlehem had appeared on the opposite side of the planet. And then they kind of do the math and realize June 6th at 6 a.m., when Damien was born, is the 6th day of the 6th month, the 6th hour of that day. So the number is 666. Robert confesses that his real son is dead. They don't know whose son he's raising. And Jennings says, let's try to figure this out. I'm going to help you. And he says, I'm going to help you figure it out because, and he shows him a picture that he took of himself, and there's a sharp line cutting across his neck, implying he is next, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mrs. Baylock tells Robert that the rest of the house's staff has up and left, leaving behind an address where they can be sent their last month's wages. And she tells him that the dog has been taken care of. Robert and Jennings go to Rome and discover that the hospital where Damien was born burned down in a terrible fire 5 years ago. The fire started in the Hall of Records leading up to the third floor. There are no more records of anyone who was born there. But the former head priest, Father Spoleto, survived and now lives in a monastery. So this is the man that gave Robert the baby.
All right. Yes, that's right.
They do
And he must have known.
Right. Oh, he absolutely knew what he was doing. He, in fact, comments that he has fallen from grace. They do some math on that poem that was recited and discover that, the Antichrist, the son of Satan, will rise up in politics. So it's all starting to make sense to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the men find Father Spoleto at the monastery, who has a severe burn scar across half of his face. He can't talk. He's unresponsive, but he can write with one of his hands, crudely. He's drawn 3 6s and implying that he knows a little something about what's going on. And he writes to them Servet, which is short for Cerveteri, an old cemetery from the Etruscan times that is now nothing but ruins. So Robert and Jennings drive to it. They arrive at dusk. I love this set piece. It looks like it's built on a soundstage, really spooky. I just think it's beautiful to look at.
Mm.
They discover a grave of the birth mother of Damien, dated the 6th of June, 5 years ago. And next to that grave is a small infant's grave. Robert deducts that this must be where his actual birth son is buried, and that the woman must be the mother of the child that he adopted. But when they lift the lid, they see the skeleton of a dog or the skeleton of a jackal, causing some confusion. And then they deduce, well, if the infant's grave has the skeleton of an animal as well, then my son might still be alive. But when they open it, it is the skeleton of a baby. So now we realize Damien is the son of a jackal.
Head, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it's really cruel. Damien was born of a jackal, and that his son was murdered. And upon realizing this, they are both attacked by Rottweilers, but manage to escape, climb the fence, get in the car, and drive away. Now
that's horrible as well, because all the it's viciously filmed, and I mean, I don't know what they did to those dogs,
right.
But it's brilliantly done, because you could the special effects and all that, the sound, and he impaled himself through the railings, and he's trying to get his arm back off, all building up to this horror of what's happening, with his wife somewhere else, kind of thing.
Oh, it's a great scene. Actually, the stunt double for Jennings was injured by one of the dogs, even though they took every precaution. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Catherine is woken up in the hospital. Robert has called her and says, get the hell out of London. I'm sending someone to bring you to Rome and just cooperate with me. She agrees to leave. But when she's trying to get dressed, we see Mrs. Baylock in her hospital room. And just like you said, she's trying to get this kind of sheer nightgown out from her head. And it does give her the look of the Virgin Mary. And Mrs. Baylock, the evil nanny, closes in on her. And she plummets from the hospital window, crashing on top of an ambulance, and dies. And Robert is informed, and he tells Jennings that he wants Damien to die too. Now they go to meet with Bugenhagen, the man Father Brennan told him to meet with to learn how to kill Damien, in this ancient city of Jezreel, the place where Christianity began. Jennings is excused. You are not a part of this. And Robert is given the information. He's given a set of 6 daggers and tells him, you must kill him on hallowed ground, a church. His blood must be spilled on the altar of God. The first knife is to extinguish physical life, and then he is to like stab him with the other knives in the shape of a cross. Tells him this is not a human child, make no mistake, have no pity for him. If you need proof, he will bear the birthmark of 3 6s. So the Bible says. Robert's never seen it. I've bathed him, and he's told, well, it's probably on his head under his hair. Robert explains his apprehension to Jennings, and he throws the daggers away down an alley. Now, this scene is so iconic. Jennings goes to retrieve them and says he'll do it himself. But up a hill, a construction vehicle, the emergency brake comes off and rolls down the hill. When it gets stuck on a rock, a sheet of glass slides off and decapitates Jennings, whose head spins and spins and spins in the air. And it is one of the most iconic and important beheadings in cinematic history.
Did you know that his ex-wife bought the prosthetic head that was made of David Warner? But you found that weird.
That's brilliant. I mean, ex-wife specifically.
Ex-wife, but that's like horrific, isn't it?
She
Why
must
would
have been
you buy the head?
Must have been real
made
pissed.
in the movie of the now dead David Warner.
Yeah.
David Bell earlier. Sorry, I'm a bit dyslexic and a bit weird, but no, what I meant was Warner. Brilliant.
No, it's a great scene. It was shot and edited specifically so that the head keeps spinning. So if people close their eyes, when they open them again, the head would still be spinning and they would be forced to see it. Now, this has caused Robert to change his mind. He's seen on a plane holding the daggers on his way back home. How he got them past TSA, I'll never know.
Right.
I think it was a private plane.
It was a private plane. Is that it? That would make sense. He's a government official, of course.
Yeah.
The Rottweiler growls and approaches him, but Robert is able to trick it and lock it in the basement. And he fetches a pair of shears and proceeds to Damien's bedroom, where he starts to cut Damien's hair, looking for the birthmark. And he finds it. He finds this birthmark on his scalp, and now he knows what he has to do.
Like in a, it was you think of it just like 666 in a line, and that again was shocking to me. Like I believed it anyway, but you know what I mean. It could have been real, but to see it in a circle kind of way, was even more like, you know, I never thought about it being written like that, and it's underneath its hair. That was brilliant.
It's a great image. It's a great little logo.
Great logo.
Now, out of nowhere, Mrs. Baylock screams and jumps on his back from behind. She claws at his eyes. She's strangling. The Rottweiler is barking downstairs, and she's just attacking the hell out of Robert. Damien wakes up and hides behind a chair, and there's a struggle. She bites him, and he kicks her in the face, and he knocks her out. Robert grabs Damien, and they fall down the stairs together. Damien is out cold. Robert begins to gather him, but Mrs. Baylock attacks again, and Robert is able to stab her in the neck, killing her. It's a great scene. Apparently, they filmed a lot more of the fight, but they cut it because it was just a little too much.
Right, and didn't she have a nice pick and a fork in at one point?
I think ice pick inside of the head for it's insane. It all happens real fast.
And a fork thing in the neck. Yeah,
Robert throws Damien into the car and is driving away real fast. When he leaves the mansion, the security guard at the mansion gate starts pursuing him, assuming that Robert is in some kind of danger. He's driving the car with one hand, and he's got Damien pinned in the passenger seat with the other hand, screaming and fighting, while the police car is following close behind. Robert pulls into the church and carries a kicking and screaming Damien along with him, laying him out on the altar and producing the 6 daggers. He holds one above Damien, who protests, "Please, Daddy, no. No, Daddy, no." And Robert asks God for help before raising the dagger when the police bust in and fire a shot. And it's very impactful. We don't see Robert get hit. What we see is a cut to a funeral. It's a joint funeral for Robert and Catherine. And a soldier plays taps on a horn as their caskets are lowered into the ground. We don't
know who it's for, do it? Could be Damien or the father, couldn't it?
That's a good point. I guess I never thought about that.
Praying that it would be obviously Damien.
Right. Right. So that's a good point.
Yeah, and I always was freaked with that because you don't know how big the coffins are. One looks kind of little and one looks big to my mind at the time, I remember. And going, oh God, he's gone, because they can't do Gregory Peck and it's going to finish, you know, in my little innocence at the time.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't that young, but and then it just pans down and you're going, no, when you know his face is going to turn around, don't you?
Yeah.
You just know it.
Because he's seen we see the backs of two people's heads, and it turns out to be Mr. President, quote, and the First Lady. And they pan down the back of their heads, and we see the First Lady holding the hand of a child who turns around and smiles at the camera. And it's Damien.
Oh,
Damien
it's vile.
is moving to America, maybe to be raised by the president, and work his way up into American politics.
Right. Because they were going to meet the president, weren't they? They were talking about having meetings with him, and
right.
You know, they were kind of close because he was the ambassador to England.
Yeah, they had a relationship. So we fade to black, and a text panel appears reading, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666." From the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 18. End of film. The Omen. We love it. Here on Rick or Treat Horrorcast, we have a rating system, and we're going to rate this film real quick. A movie is either a trick, which means it's okay, it's a treat, which means you love it, or it's a smell my feet, which means it sucks. Adam, how would you rate The Omen?
What was the number one again?
The best is treat.
The best is treat. Love The Omen.
Yeah.
I'll go for that for sure. Treat.
Yeah, it's a classic for a reason. Absolute treat. Timeless, beautifully shot, beautifully acted, and never get tired of it.
And you know that smile at the end?
Yeah.
The director started using reverse psychology on the kid.
Oh, yeah?
The kid obviously had a bit of a devil inside him, shall we say.
Sure.
And by that time, he'd learned, and he went, listen, we're going to take your face. Don't smile whatsoever, because it'll ruin the whole film. So if you just look down the camera lens, just look with no expression at all. We'll just keep it on you for a couple of minutes. But honestly, don't smile whatsoever, knowing that the kid would.
That's brilliant. I mean,
he took the shot, and that's the most brilliant smile, because how can a kid like that be evil?
Right.
But he's got a look of it.
Yeah.
But the evil in him was just to go, don't tell me what to do, because I'm going to smile anyway if I want.
It's the perfect smile.
Like, whoa, that's perfect smile.
It's brilliant. The ending a little reminds me of The Bad Seed and Wrote a Penmark,
yes.
Surviving at the end of that movie. Well, listen, I can't thank both of you enough for taking the time to be on this show. This has been such a great episode. I'm such a fan of both of you. And
lovely.
Thank you.
And, you read that very well as well, the synopsis. I didn't
really good, yes.
Okay, so
thank you very much.
That was brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. It was nice meeting you.
You as well. Be sure to stay up to date on Adam and Tracie's upcoming short horror film, End of Story, by following on Instagram at End of Story Short Film. And if you're in New York City, you have to see Here We Are, Stephen Sondheim's final musical. This is musical theater history. The show has been extended through January 21st, and their final block of tickets have gone on sale. I can't recommend it enough. Follow the podcast on Instagram at Rick or Treat Pod and on YouTube by searching Rick or Treat Horrorcast. Join the hundreds of YouTube subscribers and thousands of viewers by subscribing and liking. If you'd like to send me a treat, my Venmo is at Rick or Treat. Now I have a special holiday surprise for you. Rather than waiting 2 weeks for the next episode, next week I'll be discussing 1980s slasher spectacular. /stacular? I don't know. New Year's Evil with budding horror filmmaker Kristen Noriega. So get your New Year's resolutions ready before it's too late. And we'll see y'all later, Spookies. Thanks for coming Rick or Treating. It'd be a real scream if you take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. The show's spooky intro and outro music is a cover of Camille Saint-Saëns' Danse Macabre, with orchestrations composed and performed by Lestat von Monlicht. My website, rickortreat.com, is designed and maintained by Evelyn DeVere. The show's social media content is created by my evil minion and social media manager, Stanley Martin. The Rick or Treat logo was designed by Philip Romano. Contact information and links to these artists can be found in the episode description. Check them out, they're frighteningly talented. Rick or Treat Horrorcast is independently produced by me, Ricky J. Duarte, of Rick or Treat Productions. If you like what you heard, tell a friend. If you didn't, well, they're coming to get you, listener.